Hey guys, Dr. Kelsey Asplin here. So today I'm doing a video with a good friend of mine, Mr. Ryan Humphries. He is actually my personal trainer that I've been working with for a while, and we wanted to get on and talk a little bit about the current situation that we're all dealing with right now and discuss some of the ways that we can support ourselves and how you all can support yourself at this time to make sure that you're staying as healthy as possible. So Ryan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and your interest in talking about this?
Sure. First off, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk about this with a qualified health professional. So my background is in exercise science, kind of a fitness nerd. I co-founded Axistence Athletics about 7 years ago. Axistence is really an adventure training center. So it is a gym, one piece of it, but we've also done it on, excuse me, we've also done seminars on everything from wilderness survival to how to go on your first snowshoe trip. It's really a gym dedicated to people living their most active existence. And right now, all gyms in Colorado are shut down, and it's getting a little bit more challenging for people to really live their most active existence. So one of the principles that Axistence was founded on was that, we're not necessarily the experts in every field, but what we love to do is find those experts and then educate our members, and anybody out there who's listening. So pretty excited today to talk to Dr. Kelsey about this. As she said, we've been working together, training together for a while. She's one of my personal training students. My background, again, in exercise science. I'm also a strength coach. And so primarily working with kettlebells, barbells, body weight, primarily really isn't a good thing because we use a little bit of everything. But I'm excited to talk about not just health, well-being on the fitness aspect of it, but really getting down to what this virus is doing in our bodies and how we might be able to potentially level up our own, whether it's gut health, mental health, spiritual health, and just dive into this topic.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to talk to Ryan about this. I've been putting out a lot of content lately to all of my viewers, trying to just help them understand the basics of immune system response and trying to get out the information that we are getting in real time. I'm excited to talk to Ryan because I'm not the expert in fitness coaching and I'm not the expert in how to survive the world or the potential apocalypse that we're all talking about from a physical health standpoint. And so I also think Ryan has a really interesting perspective and a really open mind perspective about a lot of these things. So we wanted to bring you a video that was just full of intelligent information that we can just talk about this in a very calm place. So my background, as most of you all know, is I'm a naturopathic doctor. I'm formally trained as a primary care provider, but in naturopathic modalities. So we focus more on prevention and on physiology of human condition versus pathology or human disease. And so a lot of the way that I'm looking at what's going on right now is in terms of what was going on in the body ahead of time that set up an environment for this to be a problem, and what we can do to support the body in its innate ability to get through this. So that's my primary goal. So Ryan, what's one of the first things you want to talk about today?
Sure. Everybody is talking about the immune system, right? Either trying to boost their immune system or figuring out what is harmful to their immune system. But I don't know if a lot of people have a great understanding. I don't know if I have a great understanding of exactly, when we say immune system, what are we really talking about? Can you explain a little bit more of kind of what immunity is?
Absolutely. So this is a great question. I love talking about the immune system, and I did another video on this. So if you haven't seen it or if you're not following me, go over to my Instagram and you can see the video where I lay out how the immune system works. But basically, if you think of your immune system as your built-in militia or built-in military, and its job is to just consistently patrol your body for any potential foreign invader or something that could cause a problem for it. And when it finds something, that's when it reacts, right? So in the case of a virus or a bacteria or anything that your body doesn't like, this could be a food sensitivity, this could be an allergy, any number of things. If some piece of that thing, we'll call it the antigen, gets into your body, then your little immune military scouts that are constantly floating around in your bloodstream patrolling will find it, or will find a piece of it, or will find your cell infected with it. And they basically start sending off signals to the rest of the militia to respond. So the main thing that people are hearing about in terms of the coronavirus is what's called the cytokine storm, or cytokines. And cytokines are really just little messengers. So when one of your scout cells finds an infected body cell that's been infected with the virus, or it finds the bacteria, or it finds the allergen, or whatever it is, it sends out cytokines. And cytokines are just messengers that run through your bloodstream and go alert the rest of your immune system defenses and basically say, hey, the scout found this foreign invader that we don't trust. It could cause a lot of problems for us in the body, and so we need to recruit you to come help us fight it. And we do that every day. Our body does that every day, because every day we come in contact with different viruses and bacteria and just different things in the environment that we're constantly having to protect ourselves from. So that's just a normal reaction. What happens in an immune response is a certain level of inflammation, and inflammation gets a bad rap, right? Like, everybody thinks inflammation is terrible, and it actually is a really important piece of your immune system function. If you think of inflammation, if we go down to the cellular level and think of it as these little military cells fighting, it's almost like they're just blowing up like the foreign invaders with little grenades or whatever. Like, that's inflammation. And we do want that to happen, but we want it to stop at a certain point, because if it goes out of control, then we just blow up everything and the body's completely devastated, right? So that's like basic function. So if we want to apply that to what's going on right now in terms of the cytokine storm, is basically the immune system is getting overexcited or is overreactive to the virus as it comes in the body. And so it's triggering a really, really hyper or highly elevated response. And so there's these little cytokine messengers going all over the place with this message of blow things up. And so you just get intense inflammation everywhere. And when that happens, you can cause damage to the body cells. And we're primarily seeing that in the lung cells. At least that's where we started seeing it. But the cells that are most affected by this are in the lungs as well as in the gut. And so we're actually seeing a lot of patients start out with GI symptoms and not the classic cough or shortness of breath. And then it can progress into the fever either way. The last thing I want to say about that is that the fever is also a really important piece of the immune system. A fever is essentially your internal fire, right? So that's the immune system telling your internal thermostat to crank up the temperature so that it can burn out any of the viral load that's still there. So that's a really important part of it. And really, these symptoms are just telling us that there is something going on and that the body is doing its best to fight it, really.
Thank you.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think we've all heard by now, inflammation, too much inflammation, right, is bad. A little war here and there makes sense, but we don't want to blow up the entire earth, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So if I want my inflammatory responses on normal alert, but not a hypo alert, are there things that I can be doing right now in my diet, in my daily routine, that could kind of put me out of balance? For instance, people talk about stress, right? Like a highly stressful environment can also cause inflammation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think you bring up a really good point that most of the things that could be at detriment to us are very lifestyle related. So I know that this is a time when people are especially anxious and are worried, but staying in a place of chronic stress can actually cause more problems for you. When you're stressed out, your body produces a hormone called cortisol, and it can take between 24 and 36 hours for that cortisol spike to actually come back down to baseline. And that's just from one stressful event. And so if you are living in a state of stress after stress after stress, then your cortisol levels are going to remain chronically high. And if you look at the research behind cortisol, and it's not even the research, it's just our pathophysiology understanding of cortisol, the way that it works in the body is it does suppress your immune system, along with jacking up your blood sugar, along with jacking up or screwing up your hormones, including your thyroid hormone, your sex hormones. High cortisol is going to get in the way of you being able to sleep well at night. And if you're not sleeping well, then your immune function is going to be depressed. So there's a number of things that can happen just from stress alone. I just mentioned sleep. Sleep is a huge one. Sleep is when our body actually produces growth hormone and all of the hormones that we need to fight and to repair. And so if we're not getting adequate sleep, or if we're trying to sleep, but it's not good enough sleep, then we can absolutely be impacting our immune system negatively as well. The other big thing that people keep joking about, but I think they're not just joking, is going out and buying all the liquor that they can and drinking a ton of alcohol. And that's actually a huge problem right now because alcohol depresses your immune system. And so if you're just kind of chronically drinking to get through right now, that's putting you at greater risk as well. So really what people need to be focusing on is doing the lifestyle things that actually support their body and upregulate all of the nutrients and cellular processes that help us fight when we do come in contact with something. So that's going to be drinking a lot of water, making sure you're getting a lot of water. I drink a lot of herbal tea because I think having the additional medicinal components of the herbs is just really great for my body. Making sure that you're eating a good amount of good quality food and you're getting all of the colors and you're getting all of the vegetables and you're eating food that's not been processed with antibiotics or pesticides or herbicides, because those types of things actually have to divert some of your immune system troops to deal with them. And so then you don't have as many at the front lines ready when you need them. And then obviously part of the reason I have you on today is to talk about movement and how important movement is for your immune system. So if you want to talk about that a little bit, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, I know. As far as sleep goes, one of the things I kind of joke around with a lot of my students with is that sleep is like, I mean, that's when your body releases growth hormone, right? So sleep in and of itself is kind of like free steroids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm advocating for performance enhancing drugs, but people pay a lot of money for that stuff.
Advocating for.
What's that?
I said, which we are not advocating for.
Not advocating for. But sleep is a natural performance enhancement. Like that's what it is, right? That's when your body does replenish itself.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to exercise, or just movement in general, as a strength coach, I still find it very funny that people spend time out of their day just making themselves stronger. This is not something that we used to have to do because we used to have pretty vigorous lifestyles and now we don't. So it makes sense that if I don't want to, potentially just get soft and waste away, if I want to keep some of my strength, I should probably be giving my body some stressors. Where, if I was working on a farm, I wouldn't have to worry about that because my body would have enough of those stressors. Mm-hmm. Something that's really interesting with fitness, especially when you apply intensity, some of your viewers may have heard of what's called a heat shock protein, right? So a heat shock protein gets activated when your body gets up to a certain level, a certain temperature. And typically heat shock proteins are only released when you do a very intense workout and you elevate your body temperature, but it can also be released in a sauna. That's why there's so much talk about sauna these days as well. And what happens is if we elevate that body temperature by exercise or by a sauna, we release these kind of heat shock proteins, kind of unlock them, which sets off a cascade of other hormonal things as well as growth hormone. So when it comes to exercise, I mean, one of the things that they're talking about, the coronavirus, they're saying, people who are elderly or already have, another comorbidity, maybe it's type 2 diabetes, maybe it's high blood pressure, maybe it's high cholesterol, maybe it's heart disease. These people are more at risk, right? So one of the things that you can't necessarily do, right? I could go out and I could buy a mask. I can wash my hands. But what I can't necessarily do is improve my lung function overnight. And that's where, just getting a fitness routine, even walking around the block, even, doing push-ups in your house, doing squats, just getting some movement, even yoga, getting your body moving. I know this coronavirus is affecting younger people as well. One of the things that I'm a little bit nervous about, I'm trying to, put only legitimate information out there, no panic, no fear mongering, but 2 out of 3 Americans right now are either overweight or obese. So that means 2 out of 3 Americans already have some sort of comorbidity with this, right?
Absolutely. I think that's a really great point. And, and this is not coming from any kind of like opinion that Ryan or myself are making about the population. These are the statistics that the majority of Americans are living with some kind of chronic disease. And we are finding that the chronic disease does put you at greater risk. And again, that's because part of your immune system is constantly having to deal with that disease process instead of being able to be fully ready and fully prepared in case you come in contact with the virus. Now, the one thing I would say as a caveat to that people are highly undervaluing the importance of is, even if you are somebody who you would categorize, or even who your doctor would categorize you as being young and healthy and free of chronic disease or other comorbidities, that does not mean that you are completely safe from contracting this virus. And in fact, you are actually probably part of the population that is most likely to spread it. Because you can still get it, you can still be a carrier of it and not have the same intensity of symptoms. And then if you're out exposing other people, you could pass that on to a significantly greater percentage of people.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about it at Axistence, what we call the threat bucket or the threat scale, right? So you were talking about daily stressors, and fortunately, a lot of people aren't spending a lot of time in traffic right now. That's one positive. But if you get up in the morning and your alarm wakes you up, maybe that's the first stressor of your day, and then you realize that you don't have all your paperwork prepared for the meeting that you have later, and that's an extra stressor. And maybe you didn't sleep well the night before. That's an extra stressor. Maybe you had a couple drinks the night before, which, like you said, maybe lowered that immune system as well. And that's an extra stressor. Now, somebody cuts you off in traffic, and that's an extra stressor. So maybe I'm, 35, 45 years old, and I look, feel, and perform like a healthy young adult, but my immune system might be smashed as far as like my threat bucket might be completely full of these external stressors. So now, if a virus does come my way, then my resources are elsewhere, right? The army's over here. It's fighting battles over here. It's fighting battles over here, and I don't necessarily have the means to take care of the virus. And that's one of the scary things. A lot of younger people are not dying from it, but the number of younger people that are hospitalized, I don't have those exact numbers. I'm not going to throw anything out there, but it's pretty high. It's a lot higher than people think.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. So I think that pretty much covers like what's going on in terms of immune system and spreading, and lifestyle factors really playing a huge role in this. Something else I really do want to touch on, and Ryan, you can certainly, I know you have a lot you can say in terms of how keeping your body active can play a role in this, but this is really the time where, we're, no matter what part of the country you're in, there's some level of social distancing going on, right? I know there are certain places in the country that have enacted the sheltering in or the shelter in home statute. Some places haven't quite yet, but regardless of where you are, we've all kind of been forced to slow down, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's so much business that has slowed down. So whether like you're a small business owner like me and business has slowed down, or like Ryan and business has changed, or whether you are somebody who usually frequents other businesses, the business model has seriously changed right now. And so most people are being forced to spend more time in their homes, or at least outside of where they would typically spend their time. And I think there's a lot of anxiety about this. There's a lot of people who don't like staying home all the time, or don't like, where I'm hearing from a lot of people who are having, more troubles with their families because they're not used to spending so much time with their family, and they're running into issues having to reconnect with their families. And this is really a time that I think could be used as an opportunity to work on our level of connection with other people. I think that we're seeing this on a larger scale. Most of the neighborhoods and most of the cities out there have some kind of system in place where people who have a lot of supplies, a lot of food, a lot of goods are actually able to sponsor somebody who is less fortunate and help share the wealth, so to speak. I'm seeing that everywhere. I know that Ryan, you and the other people at the gym have offered to help out any of the members who need, who can't get their hands on some toilet paper or something like that. But so I think this is an opportunity for us to really come back to our humanity and help each other in our communities. But more than that, I think it's getting back to our families, right? Our at-home community, because we spend so much time always at work or always, on the run or on the move. And the fact that people are struggling to get along with their home families, I think is really indicative of where our culture has gone. And maybe this is an opportunity to actually address that and, do some of the things that calm down stress. People are talking about this online. I'm talking about this online, that spending time cuddling with your partner or with your dog or having sex are great ways to actually bring down your stress hormones and improve your immune response. And I know that movement plays a big role in that. So if you want to talk to that, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a lot of your listeners are probably familiar with the term blue zone. If they're not, blue zones around the world are areas where people routinely live into their 90s and hundreds, and not just living into that age category, but also living into those ages with no heart disease, no diabetes, no blood pressure issues. And when we look at all these communities, regardless of, what they believe in or where they're located or what they're eating, the two biggest things that pop up with all of them are community and a sense of purpose. And I think that community aspect cannot be overlooked. I mean, community is one of our core values at Axistence, right? Adventure, community, and education. And that community, at first, it seems a little bit tough to. I was kind of freaking out. How do we keep this community, together when we can't physically be together? And I can say, just over the last couple of weeks, the outpouring from the community has been amazing. And what I mean by that is people are reaching out, asking how the gym is doing or if there's anything they can do to help us. We've rented out kettlebells, dumbbells, and plates to many of our members. We've dropped them off at their houses if they need them. We've done online Zoom calls, Facebook Lives, and that's just within, our community. But what I've really been kind of throwing out there at the during our live sessions is, we talk a lot about the Axistence community, but what can we do? What can you do right now for your community? And that's maybe your neighborhood. It could be something as small as shoveling your neighbor's driveway. If there's snow, right? If there's no snow, don't go do that. That's just weird. But what is it that we can do in our own communities to connect a little bit deeper? It's not an accident that these people who have some of the strongest communities out there are living, without disease, are living well into their golden years. Yesterday, I introduced my entire mom side of the family to Zoom, and although it was completely chaotic, we had about an hour where everybody was kind of connecting from Las Vegas to St. Louis, all over the country, and it was pretty cool.
That's great. That's great. And yeah, so I really appreciate you bringing that up. I think right now, I think people feel like they're so isolated from their community, but this is really an opportunity to get back to community. And even though it might be in some physically separated way, there's still so many ways we can support one another right now. So I think that's most of what I had to say today. Ryan, was there anything else you wanted to add?
I'll throw out there, there's a lot of talk right now about, people joke around about the apocalypse or joke around about, Mad Max, the end of the world. And I think we're all going to get through this. Things are going to change. Things have already started to change. The number of people that are working from home, I think a lot of those people may not go back to work. And I think a lot of people's stress level has already decreased a little bit, at least in terms of their job, in terms of their commute. in terms of work meetings and things like that. So I think that's a huge benefit to this. When it comes to preparedness, as far as, one of the things that we've been asked a lot is, how should I prepare for this? And the best way to be prepared is to have prepared, a year ago. The second best time is today. So, if there's something that you can do, I think everybody is aware that they should probably have some, extra water. That's just a good idea. In the 40s, it wasn't uncommon to see bomb shelters everywhere. And it's not because people were paranoid. It's just because that was a state of the times, right? That was just something that was happening. And in 2020, viruses are something that's happening. A pandemic, this is, the first big one, I guess, that we've seen in something along these lines since, 1918, but that was 100 years ago. It's likely we will see something like this again. And so, as far as being prepared, being able to be in your own house, be quarantined, have some good books on hand. You can't eat a book. So you should probably have some food.
I bet there's some out there you could eat.
Yeah.
I bet there's some.
But a lot of people, when they talk about being prepared, they'll talk about, how much food you should have, how much water you should have. Should you be able to protect yourself? And how should you do that? Should you have a first aid kit? And yes, I think, is the answer to all of those things. And none of those things are going to do you any good if you don't have a base level of fitness. And right now, a lot of excuses are being tossed out the window. I wish I could work out, but I don't have time. Why didn't you have time? Well, I had a 30-minute commute to work, 30-minute commute back. That's an hour. So that's what I'm really hearing is like, now you have an hour extra in your day. Maybe you used to go out to dinner. Maybe you're cooking at home now. So there's a lot of just time that people have on their hands right now. And I think, it could be dedicated. You mentioned it earlier, people are drinking a little bit more. They're probably eating a little bit more. When I was in the Navy, I went out on my second deployment, and it was to this little tiny island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And they told me before I got there, you can either leave this island a drunk, a chunk, or a hunk. And knowing that, social isolation can cause people to drink more. It can cause people to eat more. Or, you can see that this is not the worst thing in the world and we're going to get through it. And you can make some really positive changes right now today by, learning how to properly do a push-up and, finding, you can go to the Axistence YouTube channel. We've got over 200 videos of kind of how to do exercise. So yeah, I just think there's people have a lot of opportunity right now. There's a lot of time. And I hope they choose good over evil. Not that I'm saying drinking and eating is evil. There's a time and a place for that. But there's a lot of opportunity right now to maybe, let those excuses be just excuses. All right. And realize that like, okay, I do have time. There's nothing stopping me. Why not? Why not see?
We talk about that in naturopathic medicine as like obstacles to cure. And obstacles to cure can be anything from like, you're smoking and so your lung function can't get up until you stop smoking, right? Or it could be that you're eating a ton of sugar, you're eating fast food every day, and that's getting in the way of you being able to use your nutrients properly. But I think excuses are also obstacles to cure. And while some of them are legitimate and fair, a lot of them don't really have a place right now. And so like, again, I agree with Ryan. I think this is a time to take opportunity by the reins.
Yeah. So also you mentioned something earlier, right? When I hear about, all these things that increase cortisol and how bad cortisol is, or some of these other things that stressors are doing. So if I'm raising my cortisol levels, I don't want my cortisol levels to be spiked. So one of my first thoughts, or I know a lot of our students' first thought is, well, what can I take, right? What kind of magic, or is there a magic pill out there I can take that'll decrease my cortisol and get me back to baseline? When in reality, like, we probably should be thinking about what it is that's driving the cortisol. And if we know what's driving the cortisol, are there, things out there that would benefit us?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So I agree with you. A lot of people tend to go to what can I take? And I think the question is, what can I do? And, cortisol was just one example I threw out. And I think it's really important for anybody watching this to know and thoroughly understand that while I am a doctor, I am not your doctor. And so it's always important to make sure that you're talking with your doctor, and anything I say in here is not meant to be taken as medical advice to you or what Ryan is saying, right? Ryan is a great coach, but he's not your coach. He could be though. Right? So things I would think about with like cortisol, just as an example, is, our cortisol naturally spikes and wanes during the day to match the sunlight. It's meant to follow our circadian rhythm, which is based on the sun's cyclical pattern. And so doing things just like making sure you're actually getting to bed at a reasonable time, like no later than 10 o'clock. Really, you should be getting bed around 9:30 so that you're waking up with the sun. That's going to help regulate your cortisol levels. Making sure you're doing things very, again, it's just back to basic lifestyle, making sure you're doing things that calm you down, whether that's through meditation or exercise or following an online video about yoga or Tai Chi. Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe instead of turning on TV for hours during the day, maybe it's actually sitting down and talking to the people in your house or calling your family members who you haven't called in a year, or the people that you just never have time to connect with. Doing things like that build community, and research shows that when we are in community, our immune system actually enhances and we regulate all of the hormone systems in our body. A lot of people are asking about supplements right now, and while there are many, many supplements and many herbal remedies that are great at supporting the immune system, none of them have been seen to specifically work against coronavirus. And so it's really important to know that there are things you can do out there that may impact your immune system, but we have no idea how they're going to work specifically with this virus. And nobody can make a claim about that right now. So be also careful of who's out there and telling you that whatever they're selling or offering is going to prevent you catching this, or it's going to treat it, or it's going to cure you, because there's no evidence to suggest that's true right now. If you are interested in trying to keep your immune system strong and supported and well balanced, you need to be working with a professional who's really well versed in the options that are available for you. Because what's good for you and what your needs are as an individual are likely different from mine or from Ryan's. And so it doesn't help anybody to put out a mass statement about some kind of like either pharmaceutical or plant or something right now that may or may not be useful for everybody. So make sure you're working with somebody who you have established care with, who can help guide you in that. And if you're working on your own, then I would say, best of luck to you, and follow the recommendations for things that you can find that are just immune supportive, knowing that it may or may not have specificity against this virus.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it for us. So again, I just want to make it very, very clear. While I'm a doctor, I am not your doctor. This video is just intended to have a conversation for people to join and think about it. But make sure that if you are curious about any of this stuff, that you are talking to your doctor and establishing care with somebody. And if you're having trouble getting into your doctor, since the healthcare system is overwhelmed right now, then try to establish with another doctor. But you need to have somebody on board with you who knows you.
Awesome. I would say on that same note, what's right for one person with fitness and exercise is not right for everyone. So right now there's a lot of people, a lot of influencers out there on Facebook and Instagram that are doing some very interesting, very unique and creative workouts out there. And you know what? If you find one and you feel good after doing it, more power to you. Also, if you really want to kind of get curious as to what your body can do, I encourage you to find a qualified strength coach or fitness professional in your area that can get you there safely and efficiently.
Great. Okay. Well, I think that's it for us. If you guys have any questions for me, you're certainly welcome to reach out. Again, I'm not going to answer any specific medical questions that you might have, but I'm happy to point you in different directions. And Ryan is also a great resource. You go to their channel on YouTube. They have amazing videos, and what better time than when you're at home to watch them? So that's all I have today. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.